Welcome to Blue Dirt, the podcast that digs deep into the foundation of commercial real estate investing. Unlike most real estate shows that focus on deal making and market trends, Blue Dirt gets into the nuts and bolts of what truly builds long-term value, the building itself. We break down how to spot deferred maintenance before it costs you, why a solid preventative maintenance program is a game changer, and how triple net leases can maximize your investment returns. We'll also explore the importance of strong landlord-tenant relationships and how they drive stability and growth in your portfolio. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just getting started, Blue Dirt gives you the practical knowledge to make smarter, more profitable decisions in commercial real estate. It's time to get your hands dirty and build value from the ground up. Let's dig in. Welcome to Blue Dirt, where even idiots can make a killing in commercial real estate. Today's topic is how to properly walk a property. So what we're going to talk about, the questions we want to answer today are, what separates a casual property tour from maybe a more professional property tour? And then what red flags, hidden opportunities, and key systems should every investor evaluate during a site visit? So without further ado, Donnie?
Are you about to?
I did want to press the button.
That's
okay.
Right.
We are, listen, we are stepping up the Blue podcast. Our programmer, no, what's it called? Who's the person behind the scenes? What do we call you? Our producer. Our producer.
That's it.
Our producer gave us this little tool. And so we are going to amplify, we're going to first F it all up, but then we're going to amplify and make we figure it out.
We'll
we'll overuse it.
We'll abuse it.
We'll overuse it to start.
Yes.
You know. Yeah. So we got sound effects. Blue Dirt Podcast is going to the next level. So we're excited, and we know that you are too. Listen, don't forget to like and share and subscribe to this podcast. We greatly appreciate that. So let's kind of get into it. Why does walking a property matter? So you're going to do so much from your home office and where you're going to underwrite the property, and you're going to create these amazing spreadsheets, and eventually you're going to say, yeah, this property works. But the spreadsheet can only be driven so far. You really got to take yourself to the physical asset and then really walk it, understand it, feel it, love it. And quite honestly, if you're like us, you're going to obsess over it until you actually close. Right. And so, Don, why don't you talk about, since you are, the main facilities guy, why don't you talk about the things that you look for in a property when you're walking it?
Yeah, it seems like when we first, I'll say, get kind of a property, maybe even it's before it's under contract. When we first go out there to check it out, I think we really have kind of two different things going on simultaneously. We have the walkthrough that maybe the space is pretty close to what its use is, but a lot of times we're looking at it, what is the highest and best use? So there's that kind of walkthrough. And then on the same time,
I'm going to pause just because we likely are going to have people who are familiar with residential properties, right?
Right.
Listening.
Yeah.
And so when Donnie says highest and best use, if you're buying a residential property, it's always going to likely be a residential property. You're going to buy it as a residential. You're going to lease it out to people who are living there as a residence. And then eventually when you sell it, you are going to sell it as a resident. Commercial's different. We have a lot of different silos that commercial properties can fall into. So we could have a building that's currently being used as an office space, but it's on a main road, and maybe a higher use could be a retail space or a restaurant. So we can change the type of uses depending on zoning, and there's a lot of other factors. But that's what Donnie means when he says highest and best use, because we sometimes will manipulate the use,
right,
and get it to where there might be a higher demand. Okay, so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Which obviously translates usually into more money, right?
Right.
It like you're saying, they may have built the building originally for office. An office in that area is maybe pulling, I don't know, just say, for number's sake, $10 a square foot, but retail in that area is $15, $16 a square foot.
Right.
And you can just flip of a switch. Here we go. We have retail. Of course, there's certain zoning things, but you're more familiar with that. the second thing when we're going through the walkthrough and like you're talking about that I tend to focus a little bit more on is what is the condition really of the building? What does the structure look like? What is the roof? Are there roof leaks inside? Just how does the building look? And I will say, when we first started doing this, I think I assumed most things were normal wear and tear. That kind of surprised me. You just kind of walk through the building and you see issues, but a lot of times you just think that that's normal wear and tear. And usually it's not. Usually it's an underlying issue of something greater. So if you see something that just looks like it's not right, there probably is something that needs to be further investigated.
And I will say on that point, one of the primary issues with buildings is water.
Absolutely.
Water is going to be your biggest challenge, and typically I think contributes to the most real issues and real cost in a building. Now, of course, you have building systems, roof, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, but water intrusion, water leaks, water coming up through the foundation. I mean, Donnie, you chase this stuff all the time.
All day. Yeah.
And so one of the things that I'm going to praise Donnie for this is one of the things that he does a great job at is when we're looking at a property, he brings in a lot of professionals. You know, we have so much knowledge, but we're not professionals into this area and that area. We're not professionals in everything. What we do really, really well. But the one thing he does, other than the MEPR, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and roof, he typically will bring in a water expert. And so let's talk a little bit about the water expert, because very, very few people I ever see bring in water experts. Talk about that.
Yeah. And sometimes it may not be visible, right? There may not be a real visible issue. I'll say some of the red flags outside of your normal, you can see roof leaks, right? You can see that that's causing an issue. Mm-hmm. One that was pretty interesting that we had just looked at was, exposed brick is all the rage, right? You get inside the building. And if the brick was chalking or sweating, that can be an issue, because it shouldn't be doing that on the inside of the building. There could be other factors why it's doing that, but one of the most frequent is painting, incorrect kind of paint on the outside of the building. Other things that you're looking for a lot of times is the flooring. Is the flooring starting to buckle? If it's wood, right? I mean, we don't see that much, but even with LVT, you can see where the LVT will start to curl, where the glue is breaking free. Baseboards, that's another red flag. You can see the swelling right on the baseboards on the walls. Usually that's because there's moisture. So as you're walking through, it never ceases to amaze me when we bring him there. He looks at this property within seconds. He's just, there's issues. And a lot of people I think are afraid to know that information. And he understands that he'll go through this. He goes, "You guys probably hate calling me." I go, No, we love calling you. Just don't expect that we're going to fix everything immediately.
Well, and the other reason why it's important to us is we're not flippers. So we plan a 20-year hold on our properties. So it's better to fix water issues and real issues now. Don't bury your head in the sand, because it's going to get you at some point. And so if you operate with a long-term hold in mind, like we do, then you want to know these issues, because if you catch them early, you might spend a little bit of money now, but it's a lot better than a lot of money later. At least that's my philosophy.
Well, and it's like, it's the classic, it's a little money today, but it also may be no money today, right? You may just go, listen, I only have this much money today that I have to do X, Y, and Z. I may be having to do the roof, because that is the biggest contributor, say in this example, of water issues. But at least you know about the other stuff. You know about it now, and you can start developing a plan for it and budgeting for it today.
We're under contract for a property right now that has significant roof leaks in one portion of the building. It's the corner of the building. And it looks like it's been like this for years. We haven't closed on it. We actually close on it at the end of the month. and we already have the roofer lined up. Now this needs roof work, probably replace, not a big section, probably only about an 8x8 section of roof. And we're going to do a repair job at this point in time, about $15,000. But then we're going to go inside the building because you have to create a sealed envelope of the building first. You got to make sure that no more water. So there's no reason to start fixing anything on the inside, at least in this example, until you have a good sealed envelope. Sealed in this case is we want a dry roof. Then once that happens, then we'll go in and dehumidify it's a 2-story building, and the water was going all the way down into the first floor. So between the first and second floor, there's a section, probably a 4 foot by 4 foot section, that we'll have to replace some decking or scab it in. Not a big deal, not a hard, complex job, and then you dehumidify the area. So Don will bring in some dehues and make sure that the moisture content is low. And then we will go back and clean the walls and do kill any organic material that may or may not be there. We just kind of like to go overboard, and then it's done. It's not that it's a big deal, but then we can work on putting the gutters up, and then if you're going to do any interior work, that's when you would do it.
Yeah. Sealing the envelope is the right call. So making sure that you're cutting out the root causes, whether it is the maybe the brick isn't sealed properly, maybe the roof is bad, whatever it is, doing those things first before you go down the line. And I think one thing, it really depends on your level of expertise, because if you're getting into a building where you're a bit uncomfortable and you've not done this before, bringing in one of those moisture meters, they have those simple moisture meters that are, $30, $40. You can get a bit more extreme. You can bring a thermal imaging, and sometimes we do that. Get in there and start scanning it, because you'll be able to see those kinds of things using those kind of tools. But it all depends on where your comfort level is. Bring in even just a flashlight, getting in there and just so you can see, because a lot of times we get there and the building doesn't even have power.
Right.
So that moisture is always a huge thing here.
So then, you're also going to look at the building systems. Talk a little bit about, just this is not when you have the inspectors go. This is our walkthrough. So you take a quick glance at mechanical, electrical, plumbing. What are you looking at? Just from a casual, quick, non-professional standpoint.
Yeah.
But as professional investors, we look at it, and then we ultimately hire the professionals to go the deep dive.
Yeah.
But from your perspective, when you're casually walking this property, what are you focused on the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and roof?
I'll say the layout, right? Because there's some you get in and maybe there's not enough AC for the whole space, but who knows, right? We don't know what we're going to do with it yet. I'll go look at the units. Does it look like it's, newer in age, right? A lot of times they'll have the sticker on the side and you can tell the age of the unit or the type of coolant because it's labeled right there. So just right away, easy, look at that.
And I'm guessing that this will be a factual statement, even though I'm making it up. I imagine if you took a photo of that and then entered it into like a chat GPT, it can spit out the information, right? Have you done that?
I have. Yep.
Okay. So that you don't have to be an expert on being able to read that label. Mm-hmm. The label has valuable information. It'll tell you the year it was made, the month it was installed. It will give you a lot of information if you allow it.
Yeah, just take that and do it. It's exactly right. I have done that before. Other one too is I'll walk right to the electrical. Look at the panels. One of my things that I look for is how many spaces are in the panel that actually don't have breakers. It's usually a good sign. If there's maybe a third of it, 25%, whatever, that are vacant, you can tell that maybe the building isn't at capacity, right?
Okay.
You can tell that you get more complex, right? But that's just a good, hey, I walked in, I looked at the panel, it's not being overloaded. So You know that there's room for some power if you had somebody come in looking for power. Another thing too, I'll look at a lot of times is the ducts where the registers are. If there's a lot of kind of humidity, mold around them, if you will, granite matter, whatever.
Right.
That tells me that there could be another issue there. Maybe it's pulling in it's pulling in humid air somewhere. So there may be a little bit of an issue with that.
I want to talk a little bit about mold for a second. There is a lot of people out there that will try to scare you about mold. Now, there are some molds that are absolutely horrible, but the most of the molds that we deal with, and really, what is mold? It's just mold is everywhere. You have it everywhere. It is everywhere, and most of it we have found not to be a big deal.
And that's why they do when they do the testing, they test outside. So when they're putting together their analysis, they have to do an outside test. And most of the mold tests we do, they come with higher mold outside.
Right.
So I mean, they have to have that.
We live in Florida. We're in a humid area. There's just mold is a naturally occurring thing, but these companies will try to scare you and don't fall for it. Now, when you see something on the wall, it probably is mold, but it doesn't mean that it's a super harmful mold. A lot of the molds can be simply cleaned, bleached, kills, KILZ, the paint over it. I'm not a mold expert, but I know that when we have done a lot of different testing, I don't know that we ever, at least I can't remember a time where we ever had a mold that was, oh my God, this is the really harmful black mold. I don't know that
very infrequent. I mean,
you've done it more than me, but
yeah. Of course, probably of all the times that we've ever done it. I mean, you're talking less than 10%, probably less than 5% of the time that we've gotten back. Usually the indicator that when you find the issue that there's going to be a problem there is when there's been a long-term, and when we first started doing this, they explained it to me, the bad kind of mold comes when it's just a constant drip, 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 drip.
Okay.
If the space just gets wet and dries out, there's usually no issues. And that's where a lot of times, I mean, we're getting...
So maybe something that's been ignored.
Yeah, if you have gotten it wet, the space has gotten wet, and then it hasn't had a chance to dry it out, and you've just ignored it, then that's where it will begin to form. Yeah.
Let me ask you this: on that 5% that you've identified as, I'll say, bad mold, was it fixable? And
super.
And if so, what did they do?
Usually, what they'll do is contain the area and they'll cut it out.
Like maybe a drywall.
Yeah, usually it's been on drywall, and typically it's been in a non-conditioned space, usually where maybe a water heater is. The water heater had a little bit of leak in a closet. They get in there, you open it up. It's not conditioned, and it's just had that little bit of drip. You get in there, you have one of the groups, like Pro Clean is one we use here locally all the time. Serve Pro, they'll get in, contain the space, cut it, properly remove it, and then you get back in there and throw it out.
Okay.
It's really not a big
So
issue.
It didn't infect the entire property. It's just a very, very contained area.
Correct.
Okay. So just don't be alarmed by that. A lot of times these are fixes. But on a regular normal mold situation, how do you remedy that?
On a regular, there's really nothing to do. I mean, you can get through if you maybe have like a small, if you have like maybe a sour smell, the mold smell, if you will, we'll go through and just get the carpets professionally cleaned, clean the space. Maybe we'll clean the duct, replace some of the filters, go through there. That's about the extent. And a lot of times that is more of a smell related. And even after we have the testing will show up negative almost every time. But the tenants it's bothering them. So sometimes
it's a little psychosomatic.
Yeah, most of the time.
And I will tell you, this is something that we've done, because occasionally we'll have a tenant who is maybe hyper nervous. Okay. And they will say, oh, we have mold and, you need to fix it. And what we typically would do is say, hey, listen, we're happy to do a test. However, if it comes back negative, you have to pay for it. I'll do whatever a tenant wants. And if there is something wrong, we'll raise our hand. We'll take care of it. No problem. Mm-hmm. But if you are sometimes we'll have tenants that would just, constantly raise red flags. And there's a cost to us in the sense of every time somebody goes out and maybe is chasing their tail, that really doesn't work. Now, if it truly is a problem, we will take care of it. And that's just how it is. But there's many times, so that's just maybe a strategy that you can employ and say, hey, no problem. We're happy to do it. But if it's just something that you want done, then it's on your cost.
Yeah. We've done it that way many times. Hey, come in, spend the money, get it done. And after 2 or 3 times, we were like, hey, we're happy to coordinate this, but it really has to be at your expense. And you'll find a lot of times they stop.
A lot of times it's an actual big company that has a lot of employees, and a lot of people are just have nervous Nellies, and so you have to accommodate them because it's a great tenant to have. But when they have a lot of employees that can just pick up the phone and they've kind of given carte blanche, then they sometimes can get a little unruly. And
fortunately now, the biggest thing that you can do when you just walk in, you can first see a lot of the new buildings have smart thermostats that tell you the humidity on there. If you're pushing in the 70+%, that's when you're going to start seeing issues
is that right?
with the building.
Okay, I had no idea what the percentage rate was.
Yeah, that's kind of a fast and
Can
loose.
you adjust a thermostat to reduce humidity?
No, that's really, there's something wrong there. If it's not pulling the right humidity, like when we were talking about HVACs, there's a different issue at play. But if you walk in, just a quick look at the thermostat, it says 50% humidity, 40. I mean, you can get some when we've had them. They walked in, they looked at their hydrometer, whatever it's called, and they go, yeah, your guys are at almost 50% humidity. There's no problem here. I'll test everything.
Right.
But they're going, there's no issue here. So,
and remember, every area is different. If you're in Arizona, where I used to live, the humidity is extremely low. So if you hear 50% humidity in Arizona, that's probably a problem.
Yeah, ours is like 98% right outside there.
Right.
And it's not even raining. But yeah, that's the biggest thing that we look for. I think another thing that has been extremely beneficial, this is if you get into some bigger properties, if you can talk to the people there, that maybe previous maintenance people, anything like that, for a walkthrough, those people are kind of invaluable. And a lot of times you just ask them some pretty open-ended questions and just let them talk. And that
greatest resource is our past owners, past employees, past repairmen.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause they'll tell you everything they know, and they're happy to.
All right. What about things like flooring, lighting, ceiling tiles, stuff like that?
If you get in there, fortunately, in a lot of the commercial buildings, they have drop ceilings. So that's where there's a ceiling grid structure. It's got a lot of tiles that, they're essentially a cardboard-esque material, white. And the beautiful thing is you can see roof leaks. I mean,
they stain. So you can just look up, and so that's a great indicator, right? Now but if you have a drywall ceiling that's painted, it'll still show a stain depending on the paint, right?
It'll show stains a lot of times, but what it'll also show is sometimes between the seams will start to pull or bubble. They'll start having some things there, or the paint itself. Depending on the paint, I've seen where it traps water.
Maybe like a bubble. Not lead based. That's wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Lead based.
Right. Oil based.
Yeah. I mean, so there can be a bubble there. But yeah, you're purely looking for anything that just doesn't seem right. I mean, if your gut walking through there and you say, gosh, something doesn't look right, there's probably an issue there that just needs to be investigated.
Right. Let's talk about flooring. You're walking the property, you see maybe cracks in tiles. You might see different elevations in the flooring. You could be off grade, on grade. Talk about the various types of situations that you see with floors.
Yeah, we have a couple different, a lot of times commercials, on grade, it's on a slab. If I'm walking in immediately, what I'm looking for is sometimes changes in elevations between spaces, between rooms. It tells me that they may have done something in there to cover something up, where if you walk in and then there's this doesn't seem quite right of a lip, they may have covered something up, where they layered a flooring over another flooring. So there may be an issue there. Another thing too that we're dealing with on one property we're looking at is some of the tiles cracked. And what you do is just go around and knock on the tile, right around it, to see, is it breaking free from the substrate, or did someone just drop something pretty heavy?
So Greg, who works in our office, Greg Hazard, I forget what he calls it, but he goes around with a broomstick, and he just bangs on tiles. And here, this is usually on new construction. And whenever he hears I think he calls it the money stick. Once he hears a hollow, meaning they didn't really put enough, is it mortar?
Yeah. Well, it's
whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And so then he just marks an X, meaning that the tile guy has to come and take it out and redo it. So he goes around with his money stick and just starts banging on tiles. And if anything has the hollow sound, he marks it and they have to pull it up. Yeah. So, and is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, but in this scenario, obviously we're doing the walkthrough, looking at the property to see if it's in good condition. And that's obviously talking about construction, delivering it properly. This is more, is there an issue that the work maybe had lasted, but not lasted long enough because it wasn't done properly?
And then what about lighting? Any unique things about lighting?
Yeah, I mean,
well, I'll talk a little bit.
I was going to say, there's the only thing I really like to look at. I mean, if all the lights come on perfectly, a lot of the LEDs have maybe about an inch. We're talking like the 2x4 fixtures. That's what happens with a lot of ours. The new ones are now lay-ins, so they're just a flat panel. But with the older versions that maybe been around a little while, you can tell if they've been retrofitted, if they have a bulb in there with about an inch on either side.
But are these problematic?
No, if they have that, that's a good sign. Okay. If they don't, then those fixtures are going to require more
fluorescent.
Maintenance. Yeah, they're fluorescent fixtures. That means the ballast is going to go bad.
And by the way, if you want to convert your fluorescent lights to LED, it literally takes, you can watch a YouTube video, you can convert those, every light fixture in about 3 minutes for no cost, plus the cost of the light bulbs, the new light bulbs, the LED bulbs.
Yeah, direct wire.
Direct wire. I mean, it is so simple. We'll just go convert. And then number one, you'll save electricity the moment you do it. And then in addition, you're lowering the amount of heat depending on the type of light bulb that you have, because LED kicks off very little heat. Mm-hmm. And so from, depending on the space, some lights kick off a lot of heat. So if you can convert those to LED, you're also saving on air conditioning. And I was thinking more specifically of the big warehouse light bulbs. If you have a big warehouse where you flip a switch and it goes, and then it takes about, maybe 2 or 3 minutes to actually fully illuminate. Those are big metal halide or different types of gas bulbs that just take time. And so you get those converted, you have a significant power drop in converting those to LED. And they have fantastic little flat, maybe 8-inch, Donnie? 10,
they
10
have
12,
all
whatever.
Size, yeah.
LED bulbs or flat panel bulbs that go into warehouses that are phenomenal. Great coverage, instant light on and off, especially with these bulbs that if you were in a warehouse and then you turned it off, they have to cool down before they start back up. So if somebody accidentally hits the switch, it might take a couple minutes to get back up. So what does it typically cost? And listen, your tenants want LED lights as well. Mm-hmm. So as far as the warehouse bulbs, other than needing a lift in many cases, what's the cost of converting those to LED typically?
That one's very open-ended, only because it depends on the size, right? Like you're saying, how tall is it? Do they need a lift? How difficult is it to get in there? I think those fixtures, last time we did it, I think they were about $300 for the nicer, larger fixtures. But at the same time, when we went through and did it, you can use less than the other side. They just have great coverage. And then usually what I've seen, I think around here for our electricians cost maybe about $120, $150 per fixture. If you want to have an electrician do the retrofit.
150.
Yeah, correct. 100.
Not $1.50. Donnie's. I wish he was that affordable.
Oh,
but he's
$1.50.
But he's not.
$1.75.
Right.
So yeah, that and I guess kind of on the outside, talking about the moisture to drainage for the building, seeing if it has gutters. Are the gutters back backed up, causing issues for it to go in. One thing that we've done a lot of times is going back and looking at the property multiple times isn't bad, because you'll go there, you'll look at it, you'll go there, kind of envision it different. You go there sometimes when it rains. That's not a, you see it raining, take advantage and go take a look at the building when it's raining. And you can see how the building reacts during a storm event. Is it running back into the building? Are the gutters overflowing to where maybe you didn't want to get up on a ladder and look down into the gutter? Maybe you can see where the roof is actually leaking. There was another building that we have under contract that the roof was, how it was designed is coming off and it's running back into the building, where if we just have a gutter added, it's going to remove that as an issue. So seeing how it reacts in that environment is also a good little tip.
Right. So any benefit when you see an electrical panel, sometimes they're labeled, sometimes they're not, makes it a little bit more complex. But I know over the years we've run into certain electrical panels. We buy a lot of older buildings, and most of them are fine. But there are some that we can't seem to get insurance on that you should probably pay attention to. Is there a certain brand, or is it just a certain era? Explain that issue, because that can cost you some money on a perfectly good working electric panel, and the insurance says no, we won't insure the building because of that panel. Then you have to go in and replace it. Talk about that.
Yeah, we only ran into it one time.
Okay.
But it seemed like it was a well-known issue. And that's where
Chinese drywall type thing.
I don't even know. Okay. It's so foreign to me. That's a scenario where I think you mentioned ChatGPT. I'd probably just take a photo of it. The problem is a lot of the older panels, they have all the stickers removed. They have all the indicators removed. So it's kind of hard to tell, but at least if it does, and you maybe upload that to something like that, it can tell you. Of course, everything is varying degrees of how much you want to spend and how much risk you feel comfortable with. Getting your electrician, if you are concerned, have them take a look, and that'll at least mitigate that. But that on all the times that we've ever dealt with it, I think it only happened once.
So let's discuss things when you're walking a property that are nice to find. You walk a property like, oh, I didn't realize it had that, or I didn't realize this layout was like that. I mean, what are the finds that say, wow, this is an added value or could be an added value opportunity? Do you have any that come to your mind?
Yeah, the first one is fire suppression.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If I see the riser outside, everything looks great. That's usually kind of a nice to see.
Right.
A lot of people appreciate that or want it or need it for code, whatever it is. But that is definitely one, when you see that, you appreciate it.
One thing that pops into my mind is excess land. Because the ability to potentially, you may not do it, but to potentially build another building on that property, now you have free land, essentially, that you can add another building. And I'm thinking of my very first acquisition was an ugly 6,000 square foot warehouse with extra land. I didn't know it was extra land at the time. It was my very first commercial property I bought. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And it turned out to be an absolute unbelievable property, because I was able to build 2 additional warehouses, a 3,300 square foot and another 6,000 square foot in addition to the 6,000 square foot that I bought. And that really, it was free land. And the bank just absolutely rolled out the red carpet to give me a loan to build those with no additional out-of-pocket money. So to me, that was a nice find.
Another one that is definitely more important with retail is if it has, really nice size, existing signage.
Oh, big deal.
Yeah. Being grandfathered in, because a lot of some new regulations, they're always trying to make it a little tighter, a little smaller. So if you got a brand that really demands, really nice, big premium signage, and if the building already had it, a lot of times that's grandfathered in.
I'll add ceiling height. The higher you have on the interior ceiling height, the more desirable that is for almost any type of commercial space, whether it's retail, warehouse, office, anything. think about it. The lower the ceiling, the less desirable it is. But the higher the ceiling, that's more in vogue, and that's really what more people want. Think about a retailer. They can now display higher. They can have display racks or displays above the actual racks themselves. So ceiling height is very, very important.
Another one too that was kind of surprising was landscaping. It could be a little bit overgrown, but if it has a nice mature landscaping with irrigation, irrigation timer, everything working, it's kind of one of the last things we think about, but at the same time, it's a real cost. I mean, I was
talking to a friend of mine this morning, Mike, and now he's redoing a historic house. The first landscape quote he got, and to Don's point, was $100,000.
Oh my God.
$100,000. I mean,
what is going on over at his house? It's not even that big a spot.
Don't say that on the air. His wife will not be happy with me. I just made a gentle suggestion. Listen, it was probably worth every bit of that $100,000. However, there may be an opportunity to I was really more to making your point that mature landscaping is really, really beneficial. Landscaping cost is real.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, his house is pretty big.
$100,000 just seems.
I know it's probably a good value. Wink,
yes.
wink. But
well, and I got into
to that point, I was thinking irrigation.
Well,
and that goes hand in hand. I know.
Oh, correct.
But
right.
when you have the irrigation system, I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. In this obviously residential, because I'm about to talk about my personal house. When we moved in, the irrigation wasn't working really well. There was issues. The heads all were going kind of haywire. And I had an issue I told you about where the backflow busted and I need to put on a new backflow. So I switched it out. Everything came on perfect. One head I need to go over and replace.
So it was probably the ball inside the backflow.
It must have been some grit or something caught up in there.
Sorry, Don, tell us what a backflow is.
So in a lot of the municipalities, especially here where we're at, you have to have a plumbing system that basically it's your fresh water coming in to the building. It comes up out of the ground, looks like an upside down U. And there's a system on there that's essentially valves that allow one-way valves that allow the fresh water to come into the building and allow you to use. And if there's an issue, what happens is with the property or even with the main system, it won't allow that water to come back into the fresh water system and contaminate what's going on that's going to the general public.
So think about this.
All commercial buildings and what's it irrigation.
Called?
It's called a backflow preventer.
So think about it. Just the name says it all. It prevents the backflow of contaminated water. It's a backflow preventer. And so, but what Don's describing is in that valve, that can get problematic. Maybe it was.
Yeah. One thing that I think caused it is when we bought the house, turning on and off the water. A lot of times that flushes that kind of grit. That's where maybe you have to blow back out a faucet or anything like that as you're working through it. I think that caused it to get, it probably was before, but caused debris to get build up in there and it just needed to be flushed out. But it's required on all commercial buildings here, but it also is required for irrigation, I learned, because of the chemicals that are typically used in your lawn and everything. They don't want that, if there was an issue, to get washed back into the main system. So yeah, irrigation, landscaping, if it's mature, those bushes take a long time to establish and they're very costly to replace at that size. So $100,000.
Yeah. So since you're on landscaping, talk about when you visibly see maybe cracks in the dirt, like erosion issues, what could be problems like that? What can cause the erosion? And I'm talking about, you see like a little mini canyon. It may only be 6 inches wide, 6 inches deep, but it's causing a problem. It's caused from something. Don't ignore it. It could be that your gutter systems are not working properly or not draining properly or don't have a place to go. I know that there have been situations where water is coming up from underneath the ground.
Yeah.
You know, so talk a little bit about those.
Yeah, I think the one that really stuck out to me was probably the biggest example is where the building during heavy rain events would have water washing into the back of the building and
like inside the building.
And they tried building a wall back there to kind of prevent this water from coming back in. And typically if you see these kinds of things, when someone builds a building, it's engineered. It's there's a lot of thought. You assume that there's not as much thought that goes into this, but there's a tremendous amount of science and math that goes into engineering a building. And it's usually because there's some drainage issue that's not taking place. This system, it had retention ponds that were all backed up and they just weren't designed properly. So we had to go back through and they were like, oh, we just need to build bigger walls. No, there's something not working here as it's designed. So go back through. We cambered all the sewer or the stormwater system in the parking lot, found the issues, cleaned up the stormwater, and now there's zero issues.
So clog.
Yeah.
Really just a clog at the end of the day. All right. So since we're outside, let's talk about parking lot and drainage, maybe ponding, broken asphalt, ADA compliance issues. You know, those are things you need to check. Commercial buildings have to have, a ADA space and ADA access. Now there are grandfathered situations where today's code is, if the building is in compliant with when it was built or when it was updated. Mm-hmm. And let's say it was built or updated 20 years ago, it was in compliance with the rules of that day. Every time they change the rules does not mean you have to change your building. Okay. However, if you plan to change so much of the building, that can trigger that everything be brought up to date. And
I think here it's 30%.
30%.
I think in the city, maybe it's 30%. It's something like that. Yeah. If you are planning a renovation that's 30% of the assessed value of the building, then you have to bring it up to whatever the current code is.
Yeah. So just be mindful of that. I mean, if you're not making any changes, fine. But, a lot of times when Donnie and I have a property, we may not be required to put in an ADA restroom, but we're just like, well, no, listen, we're not required. Let's just do it. Again, we're about how do we make our tenants as happy as they can be. And if we have the space, some buildings just don't have the physical space to do the changes. And, think about New Orleans, how many buildings over in that area, they're just really confined and maybe it's impossible to make a building ADA compliant. So, and Pensacola, where we live, has a lot of those same buildings. But when we have the opportunity that we want to update or upgrade a restroom, we still might say, let's go ahead and blow out this wall, make it bigger, put in a 3.0, which is a 36-inch door. There's things that we can do, even though it's not required. Sometimes it's just good to do it anyways.
And I think that goes to the costly or more of the value fines that probably should have been added into that category. Was if you get in there and find that it has been brought up to ADA compliance, where maybe it has ramps, nice concrete, beautiful, railings and ramps to get into the building. The doors have been modified. Maybe it has an elevator, ADA restrooms, all this. I mean, to bring a building up to code, I mean, money. Yeah. A lot of money. So, and a lot of times it makes it that much easier to release if it is.
That's right.
So that is a huge added benefit. If maybe the building was old, but it had been brought up to a current code, even in the past 10 years, a lot of times it'll have that great infrastructure that is making it a lot easier to refill.
So still outside, now you're on the roof. Some things that you might commonly see is they kind of patched it a million different ways over time, or it's great to go on top of buildings. Got to be careful during a rainstorm, or at least right after it. You can then see how the water is flowing off the roof, or if it's not flowing off, if they don't have a good slope. If you see big pooling, that can be a problem. The age of the roof, the membrane age, things like that. Talk about some of the experience that you have and what you focus on.
One thing that is, I'll say, a nice added benefit again for a roof is if maybe it's a 2-story building. That's the ones that always pop to my head. If it has an interior roof access, that makes it a lot nicer. I mean, if you have to get up and climb a ladder every 2 stories, you got to get up there. That makes it a bit more challenging. So having a roof access, if you get up on the roof, especially with the commercial buildings and their flat roofs, the 2 typical roof systems you see, you have your TPO or PVC, the white membrane style roof. And say you did get up there and it hadn't rained in a couple of days, usually it'll have these indicators of just what you would think would be there. Discoloration where there'd be ponding. So maybe the
discoloration is it ponded, and then as the water evaporated, the dust or dirt that was in the water stayed in that.
Yeah, it kind of just always builds like this mildewy type build up there. Another thing is where the PVC TPO is breaking free. So it can get air bubbles or moisture bubbles underneath. You'll see that.
Wouldn't you just take a knife and pop it?
Yeah, absolutely. Just bring a handful of screws up there and just throw them down every time.
Yeah, that's a great point. In our leases, now, by the way, nobody follows this, but
yeah, that's great.
Just to be clear. Okay. But we have in our leases that the tenants are not to go on the roofs. And why would we have that? It's not to say that we don't want them to be proactive, but a lot of times people don't think about wearing the right shoes. And I like to draw drastic examples. Let's say you went up there with stilettos. Not that you would ever do that, but that clearly is not the type of shoe you would want on your roof, right? But think about all the different types of shoes you just don't want up there. Cowboy boots, hard-soled shoe. But you also have workers that will do stuff up there and they leave screws and other things. Well, a screw looks benign until you step on it, and now you created a little puncture in the roof. Or you have an HVAC company that goes up there, they changed out things. I'm telling you, they leave parts literally just sitting on the roof. And again, those parts then actually over time hurt the roof. Or if a wind comes, it's knocking parts around. And so roof maintenance and cleanliness is definitely an advantage. So make sure your drain lines all have proper blocking. The air conditioning system will have a drain line, and a lot of times it may run off towards one side of the roof, and they'll typically put it on blocks. And there's certain blocks that react better to the roof and take care of the roof better than others. A lot of times they'll go cheap and want to use a wood block. That's not what you want either. And then making sure the cleanliness of the roof, that is honestly a big deal. Get rid of all those little screws and all these little extra, get rid of everything, because during windstorms, this stuff goes places. And at the very least, those screws are going to go onto your parking lot and puncture your tenants' tires as well. So it's a variety. Cleanliness on the roof and of course around the property are paramount.
Yeah, it's always amazing to me how many screws are on the roof. I don't even understand. I really don't. I don't understand why they're up there with so many screws in the first place. Why are they on the roof with this many screws? I don't understand where it's going.
I actually, Don has answered the question.
Enlighten me.
The answer you just gave was these roofing companies go by buildings and they just throw up on the roof handfuls of screws.
I don't even doubt that. Do you know why I don't doubt that? I was out at one of the buildings that we have 3 stories up. I found a rock as big as my iPad. So someone either had to throw it all the way up there 3 stories, or they would have had to have got this rock, carried it up on the roof to throw it down. I mean, it's unbelievable. But the amount of screws, cigarettes that are just being tossed around, I mean, it's almost like it defies logic. There's no reason for this. There's madness.
It's madness. Okay.
Yes.
I had to.
It's madness.
It's madness, I tell you.
That's my saying. Yeah.
So one of the things that Don and his crew does that I'm actually very impressed with is they give a great historical, they create a history of the property with photos. So I can go in every time they visit a property, they take photos of things that are problematic, things that are fixed, that are just the general health of the property, and then they record it. And it's really, really helpful. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's something that we've, I think, had to learn really the hard way, but just taking photos before, after, extra photos for so many reasons, even just photos of the exterior of the property, just always kind of seeing what the condition is, because there's so many times that we get in there and you can be trying to solve something, as simple as this is, and forget how to put it back together. But it's just great, for documentation, going back through history. They're invaluable. They really are, because they just, the reports that we do, we've really come a long way, using our software. We're getting ready to do another software change, which will be an even further improvement. But yet, documenting the property and its history is especially now with your phones. You can take 1 million photos and it doesn't even matter.
Right.
So, that is a nice benefit as well.
Fantastic. Well, I think that was a good episode. That wraps up another episode of the Blue Dirt Podcast, where even idiots can make a killing in commercial real estate. Listen, we'd love to have you subscribe, share, and like our video, and appreciate you listening in today. Thank you.
Is that it?
See, everybody loves us. That's a wrap for this episode of Blue Dirt. We're here to help you build smarter, invest wiser, and create long-term value in commercial real estate, one solid foundation at a time. If you found today's insights useful, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you know somebody who could benefit from these discussions, share Blue Dirt with them. Got questions or topics you'd like us to cover? Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep digging deep, stay sharp, and remember, real value is built from the ground up. See you on the next episode.